I'm Jim Collison, and live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Call the Coach, recorded on June 24th, 2016. Call the Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you do have questions during the live webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window if you just look down there. If you do need to log in, there's a button bottom left-hand corner. Click Log In. Choose the guest account, put your name in where it says guest, and then click log in. That way we can you can interact with us. We have a few out there in the chat room right now. You can ask us live questions. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, or use the contact form that's right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com, for all your coaching resources and Strength Finder training needs. You can also catch the video and both streaming and now downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows, as well as all the links to our mobile apps where you can get your top 5 right there on your phone. All those are available on our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Jeremy Petrosini is our host today. Jeremy has been gone so long I don't even know his job title. What is that now, Jeremy? A senior learning and development consultant here. I'm making a joke, Jeremy. It's always good to have you on Called to Coach, and welcome back.
Yeah, great to be here, Jim. And for those of you watching live, we're obviously counting down the days till we are together for our first annual Strengths Summit in Omaha, right? So right now, College World Series going on.
You have to listen live.
That's right. That'll be the next best thing. So I'm excited to be here. As Jim said, work as a senior consultant with Gallup, so do a lot of coaching, consulting, and again, even just the education around certification for many of you coaches out there. So glad to be with you guys today. We have back a familiar face for some of us. Michael Daphne has been on the show several times. And again, with the summit coming up, Mike's going to be one of our guest coaches that will be leading some of the sessions that many of us will get to kind of hear from and learn from him on best practices that have worked for him really over the last 10 years. Mike, I know you've been around strengths longer than that, but the last 10 kind of running your own consulting firm. Mike is president and CEO of the Daphne Group, and really, again, does a lot of speaking, writing, consulting, advising to leaders, organizations, teams, really around the world. So, Mike, I'm glad you're here today. Remind people, too, real quick, of your top 5. I know that's always interesting for people to hear. Coach's strengths.
My 5: communication, command, activator, positivity, and woo. Yeah, I showed up with Relator one time, but just to keep it authentic. Originally, woo is in there. Woo is in there, but it's definitely selective woo.
Yeah, I say the same for me. Mine's a little bit strategic woo. Yeah. So, Mike, share a little bit, I guess, just of your background, even going back for some people, again, maybe they've caught one of the previous shows where you've joined us, but just give a little bit of snapshot your journey to Strength Finder and kind of to where you're at today.
Yeah, I was working for Hewlett Packard for about 6 years, and in the course of that, yeah, you've heard of Hewlett Packard?
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of legal negotiation and things like that for HP, and in my time there, I was also helping with some nonprofits in San Diego. And around that time, the Strengths Finder was really just kind of rolling out. That's like early '99, 2000, and we came across some guys out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Leadership Vision was in town. They were kind of just getting rolling, and kind of connected with some of those guys. And we used Strengths Finder to mobilize our volunteers to see if we could increase volunteer stickiness, and it did. When I turned 30, though, I was realizing that I wasn't kind of living the life I wanted to lead, and so I basically walked away from HP and kind of packed up and moved to Minneapolis. And for the better part of a year, just traveled the country working with churches and nonprofits, basically living on my own savings and just talking about what it meant to kind of really understand strengths. And so I would sit in these rooms and we would do these one-on-ones. And so you'd have 50 to 100 people at these events, and there's only 3 of us doing one-on-ones. And so every 20 minutes, you'd see a new set of themes. And it's kind of the way I learned Strengths Finder. And when my savings ran out and it came time to get a corporate job, I got ready to, but then I got a phone call one day from a nonprofit in Detroit, and they said, "Do you do consulting?" And I'm like, "What's a consultant do?" And so next thing I knew, I'm traveling and speaking, and that was almost 11 years ago, and I incorporated 10 years ago, and it's been kind of nonstop ever since. And my clients are kind of all over the place. They're just kind of across the gamut, professional athletes to the random college kid who'll ask for advice to religious leaders, and we're doing stuff with the U.S. Olympic Committee right now with coaches in prep for Rio, just kind of all over the board. So it's been about 10 years. Obviously, I love it. And I really kind of hold up StrengthsFinder as like the vocabulary. There's a lot of different tools out there, but I tell people that StrengthsFinder actually ends up being the words that will catalyze your strategic plan. When people ask where we fit as a team, the Daphne Group, within their work, I often say between a great idea and your strategic plan, there exists a whole bunch of people. We kind of exist in that gap. Our job is to help them mobilize and kind of catalyze their understanding of how their people will interact with their strategic plan, their change, their new initiative. And so we do other things, but we start with StrengthsFinder. So
yeah, I love it. And Mike, we mentioned kind of, speaker, writer, consultant. You published your first book, Identity: A Compass for the Adventure of Life. Talk a little bit about that. I know that's like you said, strengths is one of the tools that you use, but talk about kind of the importance of that, how that has been kind of a key message that you use in your consulting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love StrengthsFinder. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan, and I kind of was focused in on it, but I wanted to see like what else, like how far people could go actually if we thought even beyond it. I don't know. I was talking last night. I did an open event here in San Diego, and we just kind of threw up a Facebook event and invited people, and we had like 70 people show up, which is pretty great. But I got asked, well, why did you write this other book? And I realized that I'm a Gen Xer, and so in my world, we grew up with the 7 steps of doing this and the roadmap to that. And I realized that those things all assume something. To follow a map or to get directions from someone else, it assumes that they have gone the place I want to go and they know the best route. And so for me, I started realizing that I was going places that my parents had never gone, my friends had never gone. I was making riskier decisions and making choices that they hadn't made, and suddenly I'd find myself lost. And it wasn't just enough to know that I had communication command and activator. I had to know where that was best applied and how best to apply it. And so I came up with this idea of, instead of a map, we need a compass. We need 4 basic points that we can constantly be pinging on that are really life-giving to us, and kind of go back to over and over again, so that while you may not always know where you are, you don't have to be lost. It's a very simple book. I'm actually, as soon as you write a book, you're like, man, I want to revise it. But I wanted something that would just be a starting point of kind of getting people to kind of step into something. So like almost like a simple on-ramp to personal development. And I'm a big believer in strengths, But it's a simple self-published book. Amazon's got it priced, the hard copy, through the roof. But I mean, if people are interested, shoot me an email. I will give you the proper pricing of a book like that.
So Mike, give us kind of the core components. So when you think again of identity, I like what you said of, just like a compass, north, south, east, west. You gotta have some kind of definitive points to kind of look at. What are some of the things that you talk about, again, that StrengthsFinder gives us a language, it gives us kind of a lens into who we are, but what are some of the other core components that leaders need to be aware of?
Yeah, I think so. For me, I kind of lay out the 4 points as identity, permission, courage, and generosity. And so with identity, I talk about, it's almost like a triangle. When it comes to identity, you have your StrengthsFinder themes and your natural talents is like the bottom of a triangle. And then you have what you can actually apply them to, what you could do them with. And then at the end, on the other side of that triangle is passion. We talk about in the book this thing called the way of the knife, which is, I asked the group last night, I said, what are the elements of a knife? What are the basic core elements that you have to be a knife? And of course, it's a handle, it's a blade, it's an edge. And so people say, okay. I'm like, that's like the talents. These are things that are innate. If those things are missing, it's not a knife. If it doesn't have a handle, it's just a blade. And so those pieces are core to the knife being a knife. And then you say, well, for me, I use the word purpose a little differently than some people would. The word purpose meaning, what can you actually apply that for? I said, what is the purpose of a knife? And they say, well, to cut things. I'm like, great. So your talents are a blade, a handle, an edge, and your purpose is to cut things. But can you use a scalpel to cut a steak? Well, the answer is yes. but that's not what it's made for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got to understand what was the actual, that deep passion that ends up kind of framing that out. And so as you take strengths as kind of the basis and the vocabulary, it helps people start to articulate, well, how can I apply my themes? But then they have to ask questions still of passion. So that's identity. The second one that actually kind of really seems to be challenging people and really encouraging them is permission. It's one thing to know that you're talented, to know you can do something great. The trick is, do you actually feel like you have permission to be that?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think honestly, when I took StrengthsFinder when I was 29 years old, it was transformational for me in the way that I think I mentioned before in a previous call to Coach. I hated my themes. I absolutely hated them. You know, I despised them because they basically had said I'd failed. I'd spent a large portion of my life specifically trying to not speak, trying to think before I act.
Talk too much, too pushy.
Talk too much, yeah.
Jumping
all those things.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I realized is that the StrengthsFinder ended up being transformational. As I was writing, I was thinking about this because in some ways it gave me permission to actually simply be me. Now, I don't know why. I'm sure I've had people in my life before that had said, hey, you're a good speaker, you should talk more. But it never really clicked. And so in the section on permission, I talk about the fact that I think we are all designed and somehow hardwired to need permission from others. But the trick is, we don't know what good authority. You can't have permission without having authority in your life. Meaning you have to have people in your life that you give authority to. And so what's interesting, as I've talked about over the years, is that why will the StrengthsFinder cut through so much noise of development for so many of them? And this is why I'm kind of a big fan. It's honestly, it's the science. It's the science of the tool. Because the authority, like people are so, I mean, I was on Gallup's millennial call the other day, and they're talking about uncertainty and lack of millennials' connection to companies and corporations. I mean, as far as like in purchasing. So the customer engagement is extremely low for millennials. And I was thinking about that, and it's like, because when brands try to sell us things, they don't quite believe it. They don't believe that those brands have authority. But there's something about the science of StrengthsFinder that I found that when you get permission from someone you know who has authority to give it to you, it's transformational. And so I think we need to cultivate relationships to give that we give that authority to, that can give us permission to be, you know, I always say, you need people in your life that give you permission to be extraordinary. The StrengthsFinder has been powerful because it starts from that. It gives them, so it gives people something that's solid, that has authoritative back, that when it says, this is your genius, this is your talent, I find that clients will just be transformed by that permission. And so identity, permission, courage. Courage is about making choices that make sure that we're making decisions every day that align with our identity, that we're moving in the direction of us. And generosity is about having a vision of the world bigger than yourself. And so it's this idea of, are you dreaming of what you could do with your job, with your life, with your time, but are you dreaming just for you and your family? I think we need to dream beyond that. I think for the world to be impacted the way I hope it will be, we have to actually think about something other than ourselves, because there will become days when we'll want to give up because focusing on us just isn't enough. We need a vision bigger than that. And so that's what I lay out in identity. So
yeah, so what I love about that too, and thanks for the high level overview, because I think again, we stop too often as coaches, and even the power of StrengthsFinders, people take and go, whoa, this is me. I mean, the number of leaders, even this past week as I was traveling, the number of leaders who said, you know, I share it with my spouse or people that know me, and they go, you paid money for this? I could have told, you know, because they kind of laughed to just go, yeah.
It's not a surprise. At its best, it's never a surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
So part of it is just that whole idea of, yes, it's you, but it gives us now a language. It lets us know it's there. It lets us know, all right, I'm high, you know, for you, I'm high communication, or for me, I'm high maximizer. How do I leverage that appropriately? Again, the way we always talk about it in our training courses is kind of like knobs on a gas grill, right? Turning up, turning down. And I think this is where oftentimes we stop with identity. Okay, that's who I am.
Right.
But we don't move into the action piece. And I know that's kind of a key theme for you, is calling leaders to act courageously, right? So it's really permission, courage, generosity are all about now go do something with it. And I think especially that permission piece, I've been sharing this a lot with leaders and leaders specifically that manage or lead teams of people. Part of it is, do your people have permission, or do they feel like they're constantly playing within the lines and they're afraid to step on toes and afraid to push back? But are you giving them permission to just, again, be themselves, permission to be who they were created to be. So
Right.
I'd love to hear from you, man. I know you travel again all over the world. You mentioned, professional sports teams, Fortune 100 companies,
Yeah.
some mission-based work where you kind of fund your own travel, even to just go to parts of the world that
Yes.
most of us are
Too much
afraid,
of that.
or maybe we're afraid or smart enough to not go into. I don't know. I don't know the difference, but calling leaders to action. I'd love to hear from you just some examples of that this last year of leaders that you've really seen because they've discovered their strengths, because they have a new language through the lens of StrengthsFinder, that they have been able to lead courageously, that it's allowed them to be more generous and have permission to really lead. But just share
yeah,
with
I
us,
think just examples of some leaders. What's interesting is that I believe in I'm a big believer in StrengthsFinder as a catalyzing thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even more so, I get really frustrated when people confuse StrengthsFinder for a development program. Like it's not a development program. It's a tool that opens up things and discovers things and breaks things down into core elements. And so for me, I think in particular, I have this one client, and very successful at a firm, highly professional and genius, like dominant themes of futuristic, maximizer, strategic, with a little bit of competition chucked in, and she's amazing and talented. But what was interesting is that over that strength, that natural ability to see the future, that massive amount of resilience, naturally creates a time actually for her where she will actually take on too much, I don't want to say abuse, but almost abuse. And so instead of giving feedback to supervisors, instead of owning her space and when working with other people in the firm, she would actually just kind of absorb it and say, well, I don't want to be weak and complain. Oh, I don't want to be. And so over time, it was interesting. It actually had lost. She over time started finding herself more and more lost and more frustrated and more questioning. And so I got this literally early, actually it was the middle of the night for me, phone call, and she came out and she's like, I just need somebody to tell me I'm not crazy. I just need someone to tell me that I'm a person of vision, that I'm still strong. And so, like, literally, you break out your profile and you go back through this and say, okay, do you feel this? Are you a person who sets really high standards? Yes. Do you have examples of vision in your life? Yes. Are you the person who solves problems in your head in a moment? Yes. And I said, it's time for you to own your life in a way that says, my future is not in the hands of my supervisor. My future is in my hands, but I have to articulate what I need and want. I can't be angry at my boss for not giving me what I want without asking for it. And so I need to ask. And we kind of made a list. It was actually our last session. She went off and she's like, I thought she was really going to quit her job, which was fine. She was ready to quit her job. 2 weeks later, I get a text that says, didn't quit my job, took your advice, asked for what I want, got a $20K raise. You're the stuff. And so thanks so much. And it's like, those are the moments when even the strongest of us, some of you out there are I meet coaches all the time who are extremely strong, and they forget to take care of themselves. They forget to look back at their core information. The good news about StrengthsFinder is it gives you kind of a base point of going, now wait a minute, let's remember what's actually inside of us that way. And it's pretty profound.
Yeah. Yeah, again, just kind of like you said, it's oftentimes a reminder of who we are.
Yeah.
And back to, again, what you talk about in the book, it's permission. Like you've got communication commands. You have permission to use those. And there's power behind that in the way that you will speak into people's lives. Maybe for you, even like courage is not a problem. At times you go, all right, I'm pushing too much. So it's that ability that you being you brings value. For her to be her brings that value.
And it's funny. I think one of the things we talk a lot about, right, is that knowledge, skill, and experience, right? Talent times investment equals strength. And so when people are asked about their strengths, they typically give you, as Peter Drucker says, the wrong information. They give their resume and their academic report. Yeah. What's scary to me is, as a culture, we overvalue that, right? We see it in the research, we see it in the numbers. And what we're starting to hear in the news every day is, because of crushing, college debt and things like that, and the shift of millennials, people are starting to question the value of education, which is a dangerous conversation and a needed conversation simultaneously. But what's really interesting is that if StrengthsFinder somehow cuts through the noise, if we will let it, and finds our ability to humanize each other and give value beyond your resume, beyond your academic report, beyond your experience. And so for me, one of the things, I'm going to do a session on Wednesday morning. Sherry and I were talking about this at the Gallup Strength Summit. So if you haven't registered, go out there and do that. But I'm doing a session on Wednesday morning, and basically using strengths to change the world is what we're calling it. Because I'm pretty passionate on the power I've seen of strengths to transform people's lives in conflict-affected and fragile environments. And what's been interesting is because it suddenly causes teams to value each other differently than they would. I was in Afghanistan. Some of you guys know I go to Afghanistan quite a bit. And I was in Afghanistan about probably a year and a half ago working for this one consulting firm that's in Afghanistan. And in their building, they said, we want our entire staff. It was some British folks, some expats, some folks in India. They said, we want our entire staff to do this. And they said, including our chowkidar. Now, if you've ever been to Central Asia, your chowkidar is basically your doorman. It's the person who stands behind the gate and makes sure that that you're safe. They get firewood. They take care of some things. And so there was a chowkidar there. I won't drop out his name, but completely functionally illiterate, could not read or write. And so to get him to take StrengthsFinder in Dari, we translated the test. We took screenshots of it all, translated it into Dari so someone could read it. We got him one person to read, one person to click for him, and he would point. And we took StrengthsFinder. And this guy is just the doorman. He's just the doorman. But what was fascinating is that when we were done, they were going through his results. We had our little validation session, all of us, and we're kind of sitting around, the six of us, with the CEO, with the director of the firm, and he had analytical, individualization, connectedness, communication, and woo. So he has some deep thinking, right? Some critical thinking themes in different pieces, and we're like, woo and analytical, you're kidding. But he would smile, but as he was shocked. He couldn't understand how this Horigi test, as they say, this foreigner test, knew what he was thinking. He said, I would walk every single day, he says, down the streets. He's like, he knows every bombing that's going to come. He knows every danger that's on its way. He knows who's saying different things. And what was fascinating is that by the time they were done, they had realized that this man that they had been kind of resigning to the door, they were like, you should be our head of security. He became the person, I said, when he sees something wrong, he's the person to listen to. He doesn't have a degree. He's functionally illiterate. I said, but his talent and what he does naturally every morning gives you a 360 radar to what's going on in the city of Kabul. It's amazing. And what was fascinating is to see how he changed in their eyes in a way, because when you strip away knowledge, skill, and experience, what are you left with? Well, for us, we're able to offer people in those worlds, in those spaces, information that says, look, here's another way to consider your value. Mm-hmm. Now, it's difficult to do in those kind of environments, but there's something about getting past that barrier and giving people value that isn't based on their academic report.
Yeah. And again, it comes from them. I know I was with a group of leaders this week, and they were saying, well, this compared to a 360, or which one's better, or even they're an organization that also looks at Gallup engagement, so they use the Gallup Q12 to measure engagement. So there's all those different factors at play, to kind of just say, well, which data points do I look at? And it was really, like you said earlier, it's one tool. So it's you look at all of them,
right.
But the powerful validation of StrengthsFinder is you're the one providing the answers. You're the one saying, it's this versus this. So
right.
I love hearing that. I know Barb in the chat room had asked the question, obviously we mentioned kind of wide array of clients. What's I think for a lot of coaches out there, they begin to say, all right, when I have permission for me to be me, so playing to your strengths, what is your niche, or how do you kind of meet the needs? Because your clients have needs all over the place: team sessions, speaking, one-on-one coaching. Right. I know you've leveraged other coaches on your team in the past, but what's kind of your niche, and how do you address that, even for coaches out there that are saying, clients want me to do things that maybe aren't what I do?
Right. And again, I'm odd. I remember the very first time I met Jim Clifton. I've only met him like twice, I think, in my life. And he's like, so tell me who you're working with. And then he looked at me and was like, you're crazy. You have no focus. You're kind of all over the place. You have all these different clients. Don't you have a focus? And that's the question I get asked a lot. Here's the thing. For me particularly, we really don't have a specific focus of we will only talk to these clients, because they have one thing in common. Every single one of them. They all have people. Yeah. So I do not care whether I'm working with a law firm, whether I'm working with a construction company, or if I'm working with, Grand Cherokee or Chrysler, working in a manufacturing plant. It doesn't really matter to me, because in the end, the issues will still be the same. For me, I teach strengths through the lens of communication, decision-making, self-management, and so I'm kind of focused in on that. But I think for me, I've become an expert. I try to become an expert in whatever field I'm coaching in. So I think for each coach out there, you got to start with what's a field you understand the most as far as the mechanics of that field. And so then you can help talk people through how their natural themes impact the way they lead in that space. Because I think what ends up being critical is knowing, can you speak articulately and informed about the work they're doing? So if you don't understand the work they're doing, then it's a problem. So when I literally end up talking about, I remember one year having a client ask me, it was the week of the NFL draft, and my job was to coach him through how to talk to the general manager, he was the president, about what he wanted looking at draft candidates. He's more connectedness arranger, developer, and he had a GM that's analytical responsibility, intellection. So getting them to understand, just overwhelm the GM with data points, you're going to do better than you trying to say, I think this one's better. And so I don't know a lot. I'm not an NFL expert, but I have to understand the elements of that and then say, well, how are you communicating? So I think if you can start with the industries that you feel like you understand the most, but you'll rapidly see that you can expand past that over time if you become truly competent at being a voice in that space.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Because again, there are coaches out there who have a niche. Say, I just work with teams, or I just do one-on-one coaching via phone with people in career transition. But I think it's like you said, leveraging expertise and knowledge, because they still want that, and that's part of that talent times investment equation is kind of knowledge, skill, experience. So what do you know about their industry? What do you know about leadership?
Right.
What do you know about leading at an executive level versus management level? But again, over the 10 years, you've kind of really established a big rapport around that. So.
And I would say it's key to know what you aren't. Like, know what you're not. Like, I tell people, like, I am not a strategic planning coach. I'm not a strategic planning consultant. That's not what I do. Mm-hmm. That's not my talent. And I'm unabashedly kind of aggressive about that. In fact, I'm going to do one of the other workshops I'm doing on Tuesday during the summit. It's kind of like, it's called selling yourself or selling strengths. But honestly, it's basically going to be, these are the things I wish someone had told me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And in the early days, I was so afraid because I didn't have a fancy binder. I still don't. I don't have great collateral. I'm kind of all over the place. I've got websites and things. We're getting better all the time. But the reality was, I got to the place, I accidentally slipped one time, and I said to a potential coaching client, I said, if you're looking for someone who's going to just ask questions, I'm not your guy. I have way too much opinion for that. If you need to get a fancy binder with very specific homework that you can keep in a folder, that's not me. You probably want someone else. And I said, and that's what landed the client. Mm-hmm. But I started realizing that the more I tried to be someone else, the more I didn't embrace, look, not every client is a good fit for me. And it's better to find out now. I mean, oddly enough for me, I have command, but I also have harmony at like number 6. Actually 7 it is, my top 10. Mm-hmm. So I'm learning that I really don't love coaching crazy. I just don't. I'd rather, clients who just kind of want to stay stuck. For me, over the time of 10 years, I'm learning I'd rather help you build. I'd rather help you create. I'd rather help you transition. Now, I'm not scared of us all being a little bit crazy, but what I am interested in is going, are you really wanting to move forward? So for me, I'm now kind of vetting clients more and more, saying, that's not really what I want. And I might hit up someone on my team, Tiffany or Dara or Danny Kim or Dara Coy or Tiffany Kesey, and kind of say, well, this person might be a better fit for you. Mm-hmm. They might be more in your passion area. And I think it's key for us to know.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I want to hear from you too, Mike. You were part of a group of coaches that, again, kind of two elements of your story. One is, like you said, 10 years ago, you had the opportunity to start to do some consulting. StrengthsFinder was one of the tools. At that time, we were not certifying external coaches.
Right.
You had worked, in intellectual property law with HP.
Go Bagger.
You weren't pretending to be something you're not or fly under the radar. You were just saying, hey, this is Gallup's Materials Resources. Yeah. I'm a fan of it. Yeah. And separately, I'm a coach or consultant. You since obviously been able, since we kind of changed our approach on that and started certifying external coaches, you've had the chance to become certified. But you were able to be part of a small group. I think there were 8 of you guys as external coaches, consultants, that when Paul Allen, again, had sold Ancestry and was kind of just figuring out what's next with his journey and decided to come join Gallup as our strengths evangelist, you were one of those kind of 8 or 9 coaches that we brought in, roundtable, just to kind of say, what's the direction? Where should we go? Does this work? Does it not?
Yeah.
So and that was about 4 years ago, with where we've begun to go, and again, I know you and I even probably 2 years prior to that, we're strategizing on, man, Gallup needs to do a summit, bring leaders together. We do our client summit every year, which we have, 200 or 300 people. This one, we've already got over 600 people signed up, and for whatever reason, Gallup events, and I know other organizations are this way too, but people tend to wait till the last 2 weeks to sign up. So we'll see where we continue to go. But we already know over 600 people are going to be there. Probably will be closer to 8 or 1,000 by the time we close the doors. But with the journey of kind of where we've gone over the last 4 years, I'd just love to hear your thoughts of what you're excited about. I know, again, you get one-on-one time with Paul Allen to dream and speak into some of the ideas. But
yeah, honestly, for me, I think what I'm running into more and more as I meet more and more certified coaches, because it's funny, for years you're out here doing this, and I don't know about anybody else, but you don't always know a lot of other coaches. And so one thing I'm finding is that people will say to me, they got certified and now they're struggling. I think a lot of people expect that a Gallup certification is the key to a successful business. Mm-hmm. But what's funny is that we have to watch that mentality, right? Because that's back to this whole knowledge, skill, and experience valuing over talent thing. And we think that having a credential somehow from Gallup certification is going to transform us to very successful businesses.
No, we wouldn't expect the doctor to say, I just finished med school and now I've got this great practice.
Right.
Or I just finished law school, and it's like, okay.
Here you go.
Got part of it, now do something with it.
So,
right?
And I know people are questioning, oh gosh, I made that investment, is it worth it? And so on one level, first thing I think that's really exciting is that, honestly, if you haven't signed up for the summit yet, you're going to hear about things that have the potential to transform your business. I'm kind of surprised, actually. Love you guys, but with all due respect, was quite surprised to hear that, you guys are making an investment and a focus in on coaches in a way that has never been done before, and actually provide, you're kind of really meeting that need. You're kind of doing the whole, you're kind of doing the almost the online dating thing for potential, it's really helping people figure out, hey, if I really want to coach, how am I going to do that? And there's some exciting announcements that are coming that I think that transforms how a coach could potentially be doing business. That's the first thing I think, truly. The other thing that I'm excited about, specifically at the summit too, is that obviously we're going to celebrate StrengthsFinder. But I'm kind of the guy who, I love StrengthsFinder. I talk about it a lot. People ask me about it constantly. But the thing I feel like, I really hope, and I feel like the sense of it is, I don't love StrengthsFinder. I'm not the guy who loves it. Mm-hmm. And so my clients, I don't care if they know their themes perfectly when we're done. I think StrengthsFinder is just a tool. It's words. It's a vocabulary. I'm not overly excited about a hammer or a screwdriver. I'm way more excited about what the craftsman does with that. Yeah. So I think of StrengthsFinder a lot like a piano. Gallup created an amazing piano, and each coach has the opportunity to learn how to play, but they also have the opportunity to learn how to compose, and then how to play with other instruments. This is the thing. We've got to be less excited about StrengthsFinder and as a tool, and more excited about challenging our clients to do something with that tool. And I think there's just been, initially, there was so much excitement about this tool that told us about ourselves. But I really think coaches are going to be the key to people going, okay, but the next true evolution of this is, what will we do with this? What are you actually going to put in? Because otherwise, it's like saying, people say to me all the time, it's like me going to you and asking, people say, well, these are my strengths, right? We know this thing over and over again. People will use their 5 theme words as strengths. Well, I have the strength of strategic. Well, no, you don't. Until you do something with them. I tell them all the time, I meet clients constantly who have 5 themes and no strengths, because they're not applying what it is they're doing.
Yeah.
And the challenge of that is me asking, it's like me asking you, can you build a house? And you're like, I got a tool bag. And I'm like, no, I asked you if you could build a house. Well, I got a tool belt too. And it's like, that's like saying I've got strategic, I've got a ranger, I've got responsibility. You've got to actually challenge people to do something with it. And I think there's starting to be a move. We're starting to go beyond, hey, let's just do feedback sessions and tell you about your themes, and somehow that's going to be transformational. No. StrengthsFinder, if you let it, will help you solve hard problems. It will navigate negative and deep conversations. It'll reveal some of your greatest fears and weaknesses. It kind of goes, man, these are things I'm afraid of. Wow, maybe it's because my theme's set up here. Is it really rational to be afraid of this right now? There's so much more depth to what's in there. We've got to go beyond the tool and start to actually challenge our clients to use the tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too. And again, that's just you being you, right? Communication, command, like just positivity. There's still energy and passion behind it. But it almost sounds, I know to our tried and true coaches out there that go, it almost sounds blasphemous, right? That you'd say, oh my gosh, did he just say I don't love Strength Finder? I actually think Don Clifton, and I know in conversations I had with Kurt Leesveld, who gave 16 years of his life to just say I exist to help people tool Strength Finder to understand who they are. And again, both Kurt would say this a lot, as well as Don and so many of us coaches. The goal is to help people be a better version of themselves.
Yeah.
So the tool, like it gives insight to that, but that's all it does is the insight piece. What's important is that we take the insight and we do something with it. Right. And I actually think, Mike, what you just said, I think Don would say the same thing. I know our leaders say the same thing all the time. What are you going to do with it? And we always say whether you're talking about the Clifton Strength Finder, whether it's the Gallup Q12, whether it's our customer engagement metrics, whether it's some of our hiring tools, even just Whirlpool data on millennials, we always say that's data which provides you a what. But if you're going to help leaders, you need to answer so what and now what. Yeah. And so I always use the example of when my son Joseph, and I know you know Joseph well, and kind of told a little Joseph story in your book, which is fun for him. That element of in his life when he broke his toe and we got an X-ray, which initially, of course, like a good dad with low empathy, I said just ice it, sleep on it, it'll be fine. But we get an X-ray. They did the X-ray. They showed it to me, but that was the what, but I need to know so what, now what. Well, the so what was it broke on his growth plate, and the now what was he needed surgery with 2 pins. We needed to do something about it. It wasn't just like, okay, that's neat, thank you for the X-ray. Yeah. So I think too many people stop with the Strength Finder is all we need, and we completed it. And again, many of the coaches out there have heard this, but even while we're doing the summit, is Jim Clifton adamantly, as our chairman and CEO and the son of Don Clifton, who invented the tool, has said if we want to reach 1 billion people who know their strengths and are using their strengths, we need to reach 1 million coaches to help them apply it. Right. Because it's insight is not enough, but it's got to be action. And again, it's one of many tools, even at Gallup, but even outside of Gallup, there's a lot of great leadership tools, development tools that, again, this is just one that can help you as a coach and others as coaches create change. So, yeah. Jim, I want to just kind of pause to hear if there's questions out there in chat. Again, Mike and I can keep rolling.
We can go freestyle for hours, as you can tell.
But
yeah, JB had asked the question about to you, Michael. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your years of coaching?
Worry less about what you don't have. Man, I waited. I'm a guy with Activator, and I would wait to do things because I was convinced I didn't have what it took. I would be scared. I would be hesitant. And, I think one of the things I kind of mentioned to Sherry on the phone the other day when I was talking about the workshop we're going to do is that I remember the first time I started charging real money for a coaching session. And I'm on the upper tier of expensive right now. And I remember constantly, and coaches out there, I think they'll probably resonate with this, I remember constantly going, oh my gosh, am I providing enough value in this hour worth X amount of hundreds of dollars? And I would ask that over and over and over again. And there's this one day where it finally clicked, and I realized, you know what? At this point, I'm not charging them for that 1 hour. I am charging them for the thousands of hours it took to get to this hour. I'm charging for the investment. I'm charging for the times when I rolled quarters to pay for my gas because I was out here doing this alone. For all the people I talked to, the people that had no clue that I never want to speak to again, and the clients who were genius, and the things that, all the little scraps of data I could find in every Gallup book that was ever published, just going anything and everything. There were hours of just sitting on my porch alone going, do I still believe? See, your clients, when you're coaching, they're not paying for that time. They're paying for all those other things. And I would worry about not being enough. The reality is, as a coach, you're never going to be enough for everybody. If you're not the person, let them go. It's okay. See, there's someone else's person. You've got to start with, do you know who you are? And do you know what angle? What's your focus in coaching? What's the part of StrengthsFinder that makes you most alive? And then find clients who need the thing you have. But worry less about being unimpressive. Don't worry about being perfect. Worry about doing something. I'm challenging people to post something every day. You know, you got to truly serve. Quit talking to the world about how great you are. Start listening to them and meet their needs. What's going on out there? I mean, social media for coaches, there's so many tools out there. Obviously, don't infringe on Gallup's copyright by naming a video show themed Thursday, right, Jim?
That's right. That's right. But I already called you on it.
But I already did that, so that's okay. But share articles, share posts. But here's the thing: you've got to make it about them. You know, Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start From Why. It's a great book. I think one of the second or third highest viewed TED Talks. And his thing is people buy you before they buy your product. Well, when they buy you, they want to know if you're focused on them. See, as coaches, I think that's a big piece. One, worry less about what it is you don't have. The world doesn't care what you don't have. They're scared. Some of them are struggling. They're confused. Or some of them just don't know. They'll take whatever you offer to them. In that state, unless they're in a perfect state and they don't need you, they have a need. They will reach to almost anything that will fill that need. Some of it better than others. Hopefully you're that person at the right time. Don't worry so much about what you aren't. I wish someone had told me that 6 years ago.
Great. No, that's good advice. It gets started. Like, just stop waiting for all the planets to align and for it to be perfect and for a website and, I don't know what I'm going to charge. Charge something. Get rolling. Get some feedback. Michael, any big failures that you had that led to, because sometimes, right, those failures are what cause us to rethink some stuff and that lead to stuff that's even better. So can you think of one of those? Because I think we're afraid of failing, right? We're afraid of getting out there and doing something like, I'm going to get fired or they're not going to like me or whatever. But have you had a moment, if you think back, that a failure that really changed a course direction for you and led you in a way that was more positive?
I think it may not be what you're asking for, Jim, but when it comes to the failures, like for me, it was failures of bad decisions in the business, like overly believing a client who says, you'll meet people who are going to love what you do. You're going to talk about it. I mean, I have had clients meet me, 2 lunches, an hour-long freebie, fly to California, spend 4 hours with me, ask detailed questions, and then still not buy. And I've already cashed the check in my head. And you're like, yeah, no. So I'm like, you learn right away that, one, how you see things. You get a little more skeptical. You get a little more kind of cautious a number of times. But at the same time, I have made the mistake of not telling the truth. Not as a liar, but there's that moment when you see that person's, you see the basement of their theme, hard and center, and they're the team leader, and it's that moment where it's like, do you tell them the truth or do you walk away? Like, do you really give them what you think? And I actually lost a multi-thousand, a rather substantial coaching contract even this year because they were on board. CEO was like, yes, I really like this. I really like this. And then turns out he was an individual who likes to, he reads Harvard Business Review on weekends and changes strategies every Monday. And so he had a new strategy, and I got called into a meeting, an emergency meeting, because they were like, we need a voice. And I showed up, and they're there, and he's like, I think we should have no more supervisors. We're just going to change everything. We're going to do this on like a whim. And he's like, what do you think? And I said, I think it's a great project for your book. And I think that that's probably a really terrible idea initially. Needless to say, I was uninvited to be his coach within a week because, quote, I'm not innovative and creative and genius enough because I don't think outside the box and obviously read enough Harvard Business Review. So, and I think so for that, finding the courage to do it, I was like, you know what? I held my integrity, and it feels good to do that. But that's my command, right?
And I think sometimes as coaches, we come into this, we've had a top 5 mountaintop experience, and it was great for us, and we want to do that for others. We get the training, we start doing some things, and then we start dealing with people, and people are messy, right? Yes. It's not every coaching experience is going to be that exact same experience you had, right, on the mountaintop, because you get in there, just like you're saying, you work with this client, and the CEO is changing the rules every single week, and the employees are shipwrecked, right? They come in on Monday, and they're all stressed out, and they're thinking about leaving, and so when you get into those situations, those people are just messy, and you're thinking, wait a minute, this is supposed to be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, right?
Yeah. We're all going to be so happy about this. And and what was interesting too is I think if I think about mistakes I made in the early days, I would do strengths I would coach anybody. And when you're starting out, you need to get started, do something. But I realized over time what I would do strengths larger sessions and team sessions that if the I would do these without the supervisor in the room because they weren't bought in. And so you spend all this time and effort, and people get all excited, and it's kind of like talking to people that are just still tied up. They can never be freed because people aren't going to be, it's a terrible, terrible thing to go, man, you have hope, but your supervisor doesn't get it. And so for me, I learned right away that if you're working with a group and you don't have the champion being the team leader, you're in serious trouble because you're not going to produce the value you really could otherwise. And so you've got to really understand what's my coaching level, meaning in an organization, what's the level I'm best at coaching, and am I coaching, Gallup talks a lot about in the Q12 how critical supervisors / managers are to employee engagement. You've got to use the same focus on your coaching because you're going to have a lot more kind of trickle-down effect that way.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing with the IOC and what's coming up with Rio? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, not a ton other than USOC. They invited me, and they have a coaching development program. And so I actually they found me through here in San Diego. We have an Olympic training center in Chula Vista, and before the 2012 Olympics in London, one of the assistant men's coach called me up and said, "Hey, I've heard you speak. Could you come and do strengths with our athletes and our team?" And so I kind of basically went in and did Strengths Finder for both the men's and women's teams and coaches, and really focusing in on how you communicate with each other, and that how as a coach your Strengths Finder themes help you understand how it is you're expressing, but do you understand how your athletes are listening? And so basically really focusing in, the coaches training program called and said, hey, could you do a session with our coaches in advance, basically doing strengths and helping them understand this is how understand that under pressure, this is how you're expressing. This is what your natural talents are. These are where your gaps are. And who are your people that you listen to round out what you're not? And so who's, if you're a dominant responsibility achiever, analytical intellection, which is some of what was going on, like who on the team gives you the information that you need to get the team temperature? Are you listening to other coaches? How are you building coaches around you and listening to them in a way that kind of flushes that out? And so they're getting ready for Rio. A lot of teams right now are just doing their final cuts. And so now it's this piece where you'll find that they're having teams, they kind of using strengths in some ways to try to bring team cohesion. Because while you may know some of the people in your sport, especially something like archery, you have people who drop in who haven't been training with you that are now qualified, but now you're meant to be a team. And it's very quick and it's very intense and it's happening over 90 days. And so again, using strengths as a catalyst to catalyze people's understanding of communication, but also how they interact with each other. So we offered the tool up to them, talked to some coaches. They're kind of running that through coaches around the world for both the Olympics and the Paralympics. So pretty great.
It seemed to me that'd be a pretty easy framework because it's so standardized, and in that setting where you have different players coming together quickly, that you have a very fast framework where everybody can kind of agree, okay, these are our definitions, let's move forward, whereas opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel with teams that are coming together quickly.
Yeah, I mean, literally, this was a starting conversation. I do a lot more with the U.S. archery team, specifically here in San Diego. But we basically did a big open call and did like almost a couple-hour meetup with these coaches across the USOC. And so I think they're just now starting to really see the value of, hey, what does this mean? Also, we're talking about using strengths as a way to start helping understand coaches take on a lot of stress. Coaches out there, strengths coaches, this, but it's especially true for Olympic coaches. Performance, especially right after this time, and they were like, could you help us create another piece where we use Strengths Finder to help coaches understand how to do self-care? And so we're working on a whole program we're going to roll out right after the Olympics of going, hey, what are signs of you being unhealthy? How does your Strengths Finder themes give you a roadmap a little bit to go, these are tools I can use to recharge my batteries? And so, again, it's a lot about for the leader understanding themselves, knowing how to take care of themselves, and we start with Strengths Finder to do that.
Yeah, it's a good story. Exciting to see how that goes as we get through the months ahead before that. Jeremy, I'll throw it back to you as we kind of wrap it.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, it is interesting, and I think this gets back to a comment you made earlier, Mike, around so many different industries that you're involved in, but like you said, it comes back to people, comes back to leadership. So you see the impact that it has on athletic coaches. I know in the past we had Dr. Angela Robles on, who Olympic softball player, coaches, and just talked about the power of that. I was just in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Canada 2 weeks ago and met an Olympic wrestler. He's now a coach, but he had won silver, 2 bronze for Canada. First thing he said when he came up to me, here are my top 5 strengths. Here's what I'm doing. And it was just really interesting, just the power of the language, like you said, for people in leadership, as individual performers, as team leaders and managers, or as people leading organizations. And so, I think there's so much power to the tool. I guess one last question for you, Mike, before we wrap up. But any final thoughts? I know you've plugged a couple times just kind of the value that you see of coaches out there, whether they're certified and gone through Gallup training or not.
Right.
Attending the summit, July 18th to the 20th. Again, there's signups are still open. Lots of opportunity for networking, hearing best practices. But what final thoughts would you have to say on that?
I think, I'm going to assume best intent, right? I'm going to be like Gallup. I'm going to start from strength. I think for coaches out there that are still thinking about it, I know, going back all those years to that first meeting when, for Stampede or whatever, for when I first met Paul and a number of coaches, when you're first talking about creating a coach's world. Yep. I think the thing it's a hard concept for people to understand that people will be generous, and so I think for me and a lot of the other breakout session folks, they're going, look, I want to give you everything I've got. I want to share with you what I've got. Almost no question is kind of off limits. You're going to get a chance to ask things that you're almost too afraid to ask. You may think that we all have it all together. No, we're going to be as authentic and vulnerable and share our failings as much as anything. This, if nothing else, it's a space to help re-engage you. Every time I share strengths, I'm reconvinced myself. You need to come and just hear the stories, understand why it is you do this. Start again. Ask yourself before, look at the summit, register for it, and say, okay, why does this matter to me? Like, why does this story of strengths matter so much? Like, timeline your life. Do some pre-work on yourself, and then show up and say, you know what, I'm going to ask. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to ask for questions I wouldn't normally ask. I'm going to believe the best of these people, that they're generous and really want to help me, and I'm going to start from there. And I think really it's an opportunity to potentially, jumpstart your business, start again. Others of you, you're going to need some tools that are just going to take you to a level you haven't gone to yet. Some of you, you're just going to love hearing about strengths, and that might be enough. But I think it's going to be worth the time.
Yeah. No, and well said. Again, kind of working for Gallup, but being a fan of StrengthsFinder before I joined the organization. And some people know the story, but it was 11 years ago that I found you online, through Leadership Vision, and you were coaching me to say, don't be an idiot. If Gallup offers you a job, take it. I think I was arguing with you before you just hung up.
Like, why call a stranger?
That's
just
right.
Do it.
But the piece there too of what Gallup's really up to is it's not just a business strategy for us. It's part of global change, and whether it's opportunities for coaches and strengths enthusiasts to come just kind of sharpen the saw, or kind of again continue to learn how to leverage your own business. I do think, and just knowing a little bit behind the scenes, some of the announcements we're going to make and some of the new tools and investments we've made really for coaches continue to validate that Gallup really is out there to set coaches up for success, not just build our own brand or our own business. So our mission at Gallup is huge, and that's bigger for us than a lot of other things that we're up to, and we're excited that coaches like you, Mike, and others out there are passionate to kind of help the Strengths Revolution continue. So, Jim, I'll let you just kind of share any final details on the summit or next calls, but Mike, thanks again for joining.
Thanks for having me.
No, great to have you on. And I'll tell everyone, I'm a tech guy here at Gallup. That's really my day job. This webcasting stuff is just us goofing around on the side. We have a tremendous amount of focus and effort going in on this platform that we have coming for the coaches, and excited to announce that at the summit. That will be something we will launch and continue to work on for the next several years. And so we've got a lot of folks engaged in it and behind it and working hard to make it happen. And we'd love for you to be a part of the summit, to hear about it in person. If you can't make the summit, that's okay. I mean, it's going to be exciting. You want to be there. But if you can't make it, we know there'll be folks that there'll be conflicts. We would invite you afterwards. There'll be tons of talk right here on Call to Coach about it as we start rolling these things out. Paul joins us every other month, and he will be out to really announce it here on Call to Coach. So just make sure, if you haven't subscribed to these webcasts that we do, this is really the best way to kind of stay up to date on everything that's going on. Of course, follow the blog as well, coaching courses.gallup.com. That's got a lot of information out there of all the things we're announcing and talking about and staying connected to the strengths community out there on the Coaches blog. The links to our Facebook group, YouTube page, iTunes and RSS feeds, iPhone and Android apps, as well as everything we're doing around StrengthsFinder is available out there. Again, coaching.gallup.com. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified coach, the list of all the ways to do that and the courses that are available. In fact, we're doing courses during the summit. Those are available. That's available at courses.gallup.com. Or if you have questions, send us an email, certification@gallup.com. If you needed to write this down, just pause the video, go back. You can listen to it again.
So great the way that works.
That's a lot of, I know, a lot of people are like, say it again, and you're like, no, that's why we recorded it for you. So if you want to get more details on what's going on with the summit, all the most up-to-date information is at CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. And next week, an app just for the conference will release, and we'll be sending information out to you guys if you're registered about the app. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it, and with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.